Hey, this is Mo Lunsford at Union Grove Lumber Studios.
And this is the Shed Geek. We want to welcome you to today's episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Shed Geek podcast. And Wendal, thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate your patience with me as I spend all of my waking hours on the phone, on Zoom calls, Meets calls, team calls, phone calls, text, emails, you name it, whatever it is. Communication. We should call it the Shed Geek Communicator at this point. But hey, listen, welcome to the show. Would you care to introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about who you are and maybe what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm excited to be on the show and I appreciate the invite. It's good to be here. You know, I'm a mindset coach and relatively new to the industry. So I'll give you my story, kind of share with where I come from and how I ended up here. But my tagline is empowering individuals to unleash their full potential through transformational mindset coaching. And, you know, how I ended up here, it's an interesting story and we'll get into that. But, you know, a little bit of a background. I grew up Amish in a small community in central Ohio and lived there till I was 15 and ended up in Iowa because of my wife. So fast forward, you know, grew up in the construction industry all my life. So blue collar worker, did a lot of labor, day labor. So I know how to build things. So, you know, if I go back about 12 years ago, and I'll just kind of get into my story to kind of
go for it.
So you know how I ended up here. About 12 years ago, soon after I was married, it just kind of hit me one day. Is like, this lifestyle, this isn't going to cut it anymore. You know, I've got a wife, I got a young daughter. And so I really made that commitment, that decision that I'm going to do whatever it takes to figure out how to get to that next level. You know, just working for an hourly wage. And so that's when I went on my journey. I tried to start my own business, did that for a year and a half, 2 years, wasn't very successful, and ended up working with a guy on a manufacturing facility. So I ended up partnering with him and it was in the roll forming business. So that's where I ended up for the next 10 years of my life. Till about 8 months ago. 8 months ago is when I transitioned out of that. So I did a lot of things the hard way, and kind of what got me to where I'm at today is, you know, I didn't understand myself and I didn't understand money. So I was chasing money and I had committed to do whatever it takes to get to that next level. So I went all in and I found myself about December of 2022. I kind of woke up one day and I was kind of at the pinnacle. I'd worked myself to the top of the company. It was relatively successful financially, but inside I had no peace. There was a lot of turmoil. And I was like, what did I just do? I sacrificed the last 10 years of my life. Now I've got 3 kids. I missed out on a lot of their growing up because I worked so much. It was all about the work. And so that's what really drove me to make the changes that I did. I just got sick and tired.
Definitely understand where you're coming from. I saw something recently where somebody was talking about one of the most successful books of all times, Man's Search for Purpose, Man's Search for Meaning. And I haven't read it, so I don't know, but I want to. But I think that's I was having a conversation that kind of fits this with someone recently. And I think it's like trying to measure the end of your life backwards, right? Somebody else has said it, you know, if you're going to point and shoot at something, do you have anything you're aiming at? Or are you just shooting randomly trying to hit a target? So like if you have some targets in mind, and then you work backwards against that. When I worked at the faith-based drug and alcohol rehabilitation, a lot of those guys were in jail. So I used to say, you remember, you know, Otis from the Andy Griffith, I think it was Otis or one of them from Andy Griffith, but you know, the nostalgic, average person in jail that just tick marks the day on the wall. And I'm like, man, have you ever thought about just, this is what the day represented, just another tick mark down until I get free. It's just another tick mark down.
This is James Price of Shed Pro on Faith and Business. Have you heard the saying before? Busy means being under Satan's yoke. When we are busy, we hurry from one thing to the next. Hurry is the great enemy of a spiritual life. Hurry kills relationships, joy, gratitude, and wisdom. The history of hurrying. In 1370, Germany introduced the first public clock. The day was no longer dictated by the rising and the setting of the sun. Then, in 1880, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. People were now enabled to stay up long after dark. Then, in 2007, Steve Jobs released the iPhone. A recent study showed that an average iPhone user touches their phone 2,617 times a day. So what is the solution to our busy lives? Slow down, take the long way to work, silence your phone, keep your Sabbath day of rest, simplify our lives around what really matters. This is James Price. Thanks for listening.
And I was like, have you ever taken those tick marks and taken a look at your life? I'm 43. The average age of life in Kentucky, which is, I'm close to Kentucky, Southern Illinois, is 78 years old. Have you ever taken the amount of, maybe sounds a bit morbid, but have you ever taken the amount of days you've lived and threw them on a calendar and then looked at how many days are remaining? That's how much, you've already done what's in the days that you've ticked away. But that's how many days. And the visual really drives home a really heavy comparison to be like, these are how many days I got left to make a difference. So it begins to make you think, what do I want to leave? What's my legacy, if you will, or what's my mindset that I've left behind to those around me, my reputation, my children? That's important. And I don't know, maybe that's not exactly the sentiments of what you're saying here, but something opened you up to say, hey, I want to live in my purpose, live in my why.
It's interesting that you bring up that book because I actually wrote it down in my notes earlier today. That is a great book. And if you haven't read it, you should. And it's a great example of, he was in a concentration camp, the worst of the worst conditions. But, there's one thing that people or the outside can't control you, and that's your mental. And for me, most of my life, I lived from the outside in instead of the inside out. So it doesn't matter what's going on around you. It's how you approach it and how you handle it. So that was the big shift in for me, was learning how to understand myself and really what makes us tick as humans and really what creates the results. Because I was chasing results, chasing money. It was all about the external results. So the big shift for me was learning how we think and what actually creates those results. And here's what I found out is all your results are a direct reflection of what goes on inside of us. So if you want to change, if you don't like what you're dealing with right now, then it starts with you. We're the cause. Everything else is just the effect. So I've done a deep dive study on myself, my mental, how we function as humans over the last year. And it's been very eye-opening. It's been very interesting. Because what I figured out is, most of our days, you look at our days, they run, 95% of our days are the same. If you look at your last week, your last life. So we run off our program, we run off habits. So to create a fundamental change, we have this term called quantum leap, where it's an explosive jump in your personal growth and your performance over a short period of time. Well, in order to do that, to really change your sort of situation, whether it's your business, your relationships, or your life, you're going to have to create new habits. So that's what I figured out. And there's a process to it. So I've completely rebuilt my life over the last year. So I went from working, a quote unquote corporate job, working in an office, 50 hours a week, according to most people's standards, very successful, to really creating the life that I want to live. Because I figured out that we're little mini creators. We can create anything we want. We have a choice. So I became very intentional and created the life that I wanted to live. So it's living life on purpose, living with intention. I think most people, myself included, it just, things happen by default. We're controlled by the outside, controlled by our environment, and flipping that around, and it's called extreme ownership. I'm the problem, I'm the solution. So if you don't like your current situation, you can change that. And it makes me think of Jim Rohn. He's one of my favorite inspirational people, but he's got this quote. He says, if you don't like how things are, change. You're not a tree, or something to that effect. So once I understood that concept, that I'm in control of my life and I can create the life that I want, everything changed. So it was a huge shift.
You talked about empowering through transformation. So what does that consist of? You know, going from the caterpillar to the butterfly. What does that metamorphosis look like? What does that change look like? Is that a time-consuming mindset? Because you're not talking about just sales or consultation or marketing or building or manufacturing, exploring all of these different things. You're talking about really transforming your mind from who you were, how you saw yourself, how you saw your worldview, to now how you see it. Do you set a time limit on that? Is that different for everybody? What's your experience been like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you look at 95% of our days are run off our habits. So to fully implement a new habit, it takes about 66 days. So it's not doing some great big thing. It's just a few small disciplines practiced consistently over time. So if you follow the process, you can create a significant quantum leap or a significant change in 90 days. So what you're doing is you're just retraining yourself how to think. And that's the biggest thing that holds people back from growth is, when you think about implementing a new habit, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. You have to get out of your comfort zone. So you can't grow unless you get uncomfortable. And that's the biggest hurdle that people face, is they have to overcome their old version of themselves. But they would rather stay comfortable than get committed to, my mentor, he always says that you have to be willing. Most people want to stay successful as they are, but you have to be willing to fail at your future self in order to get to where you want to go. So you just take on a different set of risk. You basically just reframe your situation, and it's about doing things different.
I couldn't agree more. I tend to find that whenever you have really meaningful and deep conversations with multiple people who are successful or you would see as successful, or maybe they even consider themselves to be successful by some standard, the one thing that is continuous in all of them is that they will tell you they failed their way forward. They typically made more mistakes than anybody else. Well, that's because they learned what not to do by putting themselves out. So there's a bit of a risk factor there in exposing yourself to a new idea. And us as sort of a conservative industry, probably that much harder because we move slower with a conservative mindset, right? We don't embrace change necessarily, but I tend to think that it can make you comfortable. It can get you inside of an echo chamber at some point to where you begin to re-harvest the same soil over and over and over, and you never turn to new soil. It's challenging, but the new soil brings new fruit, right? Like it brings new opportunities. So like, it's just, I have to do it in myself. I recently have been just plagued with opportunity. Now, this is not a statement of arrogance, Wendell. This is a statement of humility. 5 years ago, I had no opportunity. I had zero. 10 years ago, I had zero opportunity. Wow, what an amazing thing to have all of this opportunity. But you're but one man. You're but one person in the same 24 hours, and there's only so much that you can do, and you will overcommit yourself to where you're not putting the right things in. So like we've had to like reevaluate, me and my wife, and start to say, Is this a good opportunity? Yes. Is this right for us at this time or in this moment? We don't have to say yes to everything, do we? And that's been sort of a growing period for us, because we're like, how can we possibly say no when the Lord's provided us with all of this opportunity? But I think what he's maybe putting us through is a testing of like being able to say no confidently, even though it's available to me to take. It doesn't mean I should take it. Why pick up my heavy yoke, says the Lord, right? When I can carry his. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? Just saying no.
I think that's great. And it goes back to this is where, for me, I learned the importance of creating a vision for your life and setting goals and really knowing how you want to live. And for me, it goes back to, how do I really want to live? What does that look like? And when you have clarity on that, and you know exactly what that looks like, then you start making all your decisions based off of that. And yeah, just because there's financial opportunity doesn't mean that it's going to be good for you. Because at the end of the day, it's about living a life of fulfillment and the experiences we're going to have. The money is just a secondary effect. So that's how I make my decisions and really handle those situations. Is I go back to, how do I really want to live? Does this line up with my goal or not? And then you say yes or no. And sometimes you say no to good opportunities.
There's a book by John Bevere, pastor. There's a YouTube clip, if you catch it sometime. He's talking about being at an event in like New Zealand or something, where all these pastors were meeting, and he said he felt the Lord, divinely inspire him by saying, this is not a God event. This is a good event, but it's not where I need you to be. And he said he couldn't understand it. And he said the Lord kind of gave him the mindset to go and look at the word, and took him to Genesis, where Eve ate from the fruit, and said when she ate from the fruit, she saw that it was whenever she ate, she saw that it was good. But that doesn't mean it was God. It was the fruit was good, but not God. And he said the word good leaped up off the page. And he said, I've had so many good opportunities. It's not what God wanted me to be doing. So sometimes you got to decipher. You got to figure out what those things are. And I think you have to kind of, ask for the Holy Spirit to kind of guide you in those directions of what those are. Because in business, it can be very complicated as well, because you have friendship and relationships and all these things. And that's been really a staple of where I've been working through in my life for the last 3 years since the launch of the podcast. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity, but help me make the right decisions, because all it takes is a few wrong ones to be on the struggle bus, right? So
Hello, Shed Sellers. Did you catch the latest Real Work Labs interview with George Converse? If not, don't miss this value-packed episode. Head to Shed Geeks Podcast YouTube and search Real Work Labs. George and the Real Work Labs crew are riding the wave of Google's latest updates, taking your digital presence to the next level. We're tech artisans crafting your neighborhood brand voice for shed sellers like you to stand out, gain trust, and get found online. Our software will easily capture your work snapshots, videos, weave your craft's story, and get reviews all in one virtual experience. Our innovation goes beyond getting found for your business location, rather getting found for your work locations. Reviews intertwine with their corresponding job sites. When potential customers seek local expertise, you're the proven solution they'll find. It's high time to map your reviews and showcase your beautiful work in a meaningful way that builds trust in customers' neighborhoods. Ready for the journey? Visit shedgeek.realworklabs.com or call George today at 480-787-7575. Real Work Labs, elevating your trust, increasing your conversions, and getting you found where you work in the neighborhoods you serve, one shed at a time.
Well, and that was a big shift for me. And it goes back to that living from the inside out instead of the outside in, and learning to trust your intuition. When we have wants and we have what we call intuitions and our instincts, like we need to learn to listen to those, because that's coming from somewhere. And when we can block out what's going on around us, all our external results, and even if our world's burning down, to be able to block that out and really get in tune with your higher spiritual side and really get in harmony with that, it completely changes the game. I say it gives you an incredible competitive edge in the marketplace, because now you're 2 steps ahead of everybody once you learn to develop that and make your decisions based off of that. Because if you think about it, everything physical is at the end of the line. That's the last. The first creation is inside, it's mental. So even right now, like your present results and everything we're experiencing right now at this moment is the result of a past decision. We decided to meet and get on this podcast 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So your present results are your biggest obstacle. And that's where most people can't see past that to make the right decisions moving forward. But that's also why having that vision of how you want to live and what you want to do helps keep you on track, because that was a big thing, is learning how to make decisions and just really how to live that out. Everything you do, every decision you make starts coming from that goal. Every discipline, your attitude, how you view things, everything starts coming from who you want to become and where you're going. And it just really helps keep you on track. Otherwise, you just stay stuck.
So would you say then you focus a lot on living intentionally, futuristically, almost like you're constantly measuring that goal that's in front of you that you're trying to obtain, setting benchmarks? I mean, are these appropriate things for you to say, hey, we establish a goal and then we execute, and then we establish a new goal and execute? Very purposeful, very intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those are areas that I need improvement on always.
Well, and if you think about it, there is no, either we're growing or we're dying. So now if you're not being intentional, it's just happening by default based off of your present results. So it's about living intentionally is what it is, and living with purpose. And I think we're built to grow. And I think, we've been sold this retirement myth. You work till you're 65 and then you retire and sit around and do nothing. I don't buy that. I think we're supposed to be productive and to grow for the rest of our life, because we feel good when we're productive. Now that might change as you get older, but it's that growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's biblical. Paul talks about always growing, and that's why we talk about education so much on the podcast, where our tagline was education through entertainment when we got started. And I think a lot of the purpose for that was we like to laugh, joke, and cut up over at Shed Geek and all of our affiliates and different things that we do. We have a good time. We do laugh and joke and cut up, but then there's the very serious nature of business. And I think education is one way to, communication. That's why a podcast is, because it's good to get on and talk with your competitors, even, right? Talk with your collaborators, talk with your competitors, talk with those you don't always agree with, because it helps convict what you believe already and set it in stone even further. Because you can sort of back up your convictions while they're being challenged, because it either makes you dig deeper or it makes you give up and be persuaded to see things, some other way. So tell me what your day to day looks like. You're sort of new to the shed industry, but you're not new to construction, man. I love all this talk, and you about mindset, and you've been doing like good for a long time now. But you jump out in faith or whatever it is 10 months ago. What's that experience been like? And then how are you using that to mold and shape clients that come to you? What's the nature of your business? Let's dig into that a little.
Yeah. So, I really got passionate about business and helping other business owners. And it was kind of interesting to kind of finish my story. So a year ago, I think it was December 2022 is kind of when I had that moment, I'm going to figure this out. There's got to be something better. So I reached out and started working with a mentor and got some help. And he really changed my perception and helped me understand myself. And it wasn't about 3 months into it, about March, I had a big shift, and it just felt like I outgrew my environment, like it was time to move on. And that was one of the hardest things I ever did, was to walk away from something I'd, poured my blood, sweat, and tears in for the last 10 years. But I knew I had to do it. And so I did. So by June of last year, I was completely out of my job. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do, but I really got passionate about these concepts and just some of the things I'd experienced. Like, man, this is like the information I was looking for. It's exactly what I needed 8 years ago. So I reached out to them. Boss Coaching is the company that I was working with. And I said, I want to work with you guys. I want to promote this material because I think I could really help people, just because of what it's done for me, because it really gave me that emotional freedom. And it felt like it gave me the tools to really live the life I wanted to live. So that's what I did. So I've been, I got on board with them, and I guess one of my purpose or my mission is I want to be that person I needed in my life 8 years ago, when I did everything the hard way and it felt like it was such a struggle. With what I know now, I can save people a lot of pain and a lot of unnecessary time, just by a few small shifts in how you approach your business, approach your life. So, that's what I do. I work with a lot of small business owners, just like I was back then. You're getting started, and this stuff applies for anybody, but it had such an impact on me. And so, yeah, I've dedicated my life to this cause, to helping other people find that same freedom and fulfillment, really helping people design their lives and live the life that we're supposed to live. Because I feel like everyone should live a life of freedom and fulfillment. And if you do things right and you work in harmony with the laws, the way God designed the world to work, then it's a beautiful thing.
So what are some of those rules that you've sort of invoked since coming over to Voss Coaching that have helped you? Like, what are some of those laws? What are some of those rules? What are some of the conversations you have whenever you meet with someone? Take me through the process a little bit here, what you're comfortable sharing.
Today, we have something truly groundbreaking to discuss: the Zula from Mobino Solar Solutions. This incredible shed ventilation system is set to redefine how we approach air circulation and energy efficiency, a shed ventilation marvel. With 3 robust fans generating 630 CFM, 2 fans usher in a breath of fresh air, while 1 strategically expels stillness. What's groundbreaking? It's solar powered. Harnessing the sun's energy, the Zula is a sustainable dream, eliminating electricity costs. Sleek, powerful, and eco-friendly, this system is a game changer for those seeking efficient air circulation without compromising on green values. Visit Mobino's site for more of this innovative solar shed ventilation solution and use the Shed Geek 10 for an extra 10% discount. Just visit www.mobinosolarsolutions.com.
Yeah. So the biggest thing I learned is really how our minds work, like what creates our results. So what we figured out is there's 2 parts to our mind. We have a conscious mind and we have a subconscious mind. Well, 96 to 98% of all your results, your perceptions, your behaviors are subconscious or in your unconscious. Only 2 to 4% coming from your conscious mind. And that's where you generate ideas. It's your intellect. So, a lot of people collect information, they read a lot, they study a lot, but they don't know how to apply it. So that was the big shift, because I studied some of this stuff for a couple years before I started working with them. And I had some results, but nothing significant. So what they've put together is a process of how to tap into the subconscious mind and get that fundamental shift. Because like we said earlier, we run off programs and our habits. 95% of our day is run off our habits. Well, that's all subconscious. So what I work with, I help people. There's a process to make that fundamental shift and get your subconscious mind to know whatever your goal is, however you want to live. So that's the key. And the key is your subconscious mind it's like a garden. So whatever you put into it, it's going to produce. It doesn't know what's right or wrong. And you communicate with it through feelings. So any thought that you generate and attach emotion and feeling to is what you're going to produce. So that's why it's so important, when things are going bad and you're having a rough day. Well, if you get caught up and attach feelings to those thoughts, then you're just going to produce more of the same. It might be next week, it might be 2 weeks down the road. So just understanding what causes your results was a big shift for me. So I teach people, that's what I teach people.
How do you move away from that, Wendal? How do you detach the emotion? I read a book not too long ago, and now I want to find it because I want to make mention of it on here. You have to let me get to Audible. But I said I read it. I actually I listened to it. Here we go. Whoa. The Art of Letting Go. Stop overthinking. Stop negative. Sorry, I have to turn the volume down. That way you don't get hit with it. Stop overthinking, stop negative spirals, and find emotional freedom. The Art of Letting Go by Nick Trenton. And this book has been phenomenal for me. One of the fundamental things I recall about it teaching is that you are in 100% control of your reactions, your thoughts, your emotions, what you say, but you're in 0% control of the other party, no matter who it is or in what circumstance or situation. And when you apply that principle to every situation, no matter what's going on, you realize that it doesn't matter. Oh no, they may react this way, so I need to do this to counteract that. You can't do that. You have to just act and let them react and deal with the reaction. That has served me very well in high stress moments to be able to do that. I'm not the guy that stresses in big situations. We just had the eclipse and there's a lot of fear mongering and people were like, oh no, the Lord may come home. And I was like, well, let him come. It's got to be better. Right. And if I was in a plane, I like to tell people if it were going down and everyone's screaming, I'd probably be like, didn't see this coming, but I can't control it. I've got zero control over it. And it gives me the peace of mind to easily just be like, I can't do nothing about that. I mean, but it's the things that are within my control. It's the small things on a daily thing that I could react to, I could comment on, I can not comment on, I can say, I can teach, I can preach, whatever it is. Those things are the things that are my biggest stressors because I want to make sure that I'm, presenting myself accurately with character and valor and all of these things. So it matters to me not to get caught up in how someone thinks about you, but to at least present yourself with a good self-image. That hopefully
right.
they'll accept.
Yeah. Yeah. And it comes down to disciplined thinking. We have a choice. One of those laws is the laws of polarity. Every situation there's good and there's equally as much bad. So if there's good, there's bad. If there's bad, there's good. So we have a choice. So you have to train yourself to choose the good in every situation. You change your perception of the situation. So you develop that through, there's a process, but you literally have to retrain yourself how to think. And that's what it comes down to, is accepting and rejecting ideas. But when you understand that and use your perception in your favor, now you can turn everything, like just my past, for example. I've turned my past, everything to work into my favor instead of against me. And it's a choice of how you want to view it. So you just do that throughout the day. But there again, it's a habit and it takes some time to develop that. So you have to be very disciplined, for 60 to 90 days to accept and reject those ideas. But eventually you train yourself on how to handle these situations.
How do you discipline yourself, Wendal? And what happens when discipline doesn't work? I'm a big fan of David Goggins. I know it's probably some language that maybe not everybody would appreciate, but one thing he talks about in a lot of his books and podcasts and different things is the ability for motivation to fail you, but discipline does not. So if you discipline yourself to get up every day and just go, you don't have to feel motivated to do it. You just have to discipline yourself to do it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, discipline it's not an activity, but it starts with your thinking. So you accept and reject ideas. It's what it is. And there again, how I view it or how I do it, it goes back to when you have that goal, you set a goal that inspires you. You're going after something that really inspires you. And there again, everything you do starts coming from that goal. Every decision you make, and discipline, it's a decision. Motivation is going to get you started, get you going, but it's showing up whether you feel like it or not, because you're committed to that. And it's interesting, speaking of decision, when you make a decision, it's done. So if you decide this is where I'm going to go, this is what I'm going to do, it's done. Now there's no more. And that really ties in with the discipline. So if you've got, let's say, a fitness goal, hey, I'm going to release 40 pounds, or I want to do X, you make that decision, it's done. Now you fill in the gap by doing the required activities to get you there. And I think that's where I've shifted my perception on discipline, and I view it a little bit different.
I like that. Yeah, that's good. I love to. So how do these things help those? We talk to a lot of people in the shed world, sellers, haulers, business people. And one thing I get that's consistent from all of them in private conversation is, hey man, I really appreciate that, or that episode, or your mindset on that particular situation, or that guest you had on that really opened up my eyes to a certain way of doing things. But I feel like this certainly affects all parties, but I can really see in the sales side where having a mentor and having a regular coach is paramount, because sales is or can be an emotional roller coaster for some, especially a new salesperson, right? So like if you're new, you're wondering, what did I do wrong, that didn't obtain the sale when I did the same thing last week and it got me the sale?
Hello, shed sellers. Let's take a moment to discuss the shed customer and meeting their expectations. I remember growing up in the neighborhood where a certain percentage of the houses had well-manicured lawns and well-manicured homes. These were the type of individuals who felt it was important to purchase a well-constructed home or vehicle, or maybe equipment to help maintain the quality of the item. As shed manufacturers, we seek to provide a well-built quality shed. We want the customer to feel satisfied that their hard-earned money has been well spent on a product that will last. At LuxGuard, we believe adding high-quality rubber flooring to your line of sheds makes sense to the customer and adds value the customer can appreciate. With each year, sheds are becoming more complex. The customizations we are seeing are virtually endless. LuxGuard not only gives a complimentary aesthetic appearance for their shed, but also protects the floor from spills and keeps cleanup simple. Offer your customer the customer service they seek with LuxGuard. At LuxGuard, we are committed to delivering exceptional customer service and innovative products to help our customers achieve their goals. We strive to meet the evolving needs of the customers. To speak with one of our ready-to-serve customer product specialists, simply call 336-468-4311. To see our product and view an installation video, just visit our website at luxguard.com. LuxGuard, the floor that lasts a lifetime.
Speak on that a little bit. What are some things that you sort of like promote? I'm assuming you guys work with salespeople from multiple industries, and likely even the construction and shed related, post frame related business. What do you find in that situation?
Yeah, we work with a lot of business owners, sales professionals. Sales is an interesting, sales to me is service. So that's serving at its highest level. You can't help somebody till you sell them. So that was a big shift for me coming from a non-sales background. But here's what I tell anybody: if you're in business and you're trying to grow and you're growing and changing, and here's why it was so difficult for me when I was getting started in business. I come from doing construction work, a physical labor builder, to running and managing a business. Well, if you understand yourself and you understand you run off programs and your habits, I was trying to do everything based off my old program. I didn't know how to make those changes and create the new identity of a business owner. You're going from a construction worker to running an 8-figure, company. That's a completely different animal. So what I tell people now, if you're in business and you're actively growing and trying to get to that next level, you have to create a new identity. And here's where it comes back to the vision and the goal. Everything starts with the vision. This is for anybody. Write out exactly how you want your life to look. Create that vision. And then you pick a certain goal. The goal is a part of your vision. And that's where the rubber meets the road. It might be a financial goal. It might be whatever. And now everything you do starts coming from that goal. Your decisions, your disciplines, how you think, feel, and act, everything you do starts coming from that goal, and you start embodying this new identity of the person you want to become. And that's how you make your decisions, and that's how you run your business. So if you're in sales, you have a goal, and then you figure out who do I have to become to reach this goal, or what does that person look like? And then you start filling in the gap, and you break it down to a day. Like, what are 3 to 6 activities I can do today that I know will get me to my goal?
There's a lot of folks that sort of see themselves as common, I feel like, thought or conversation anyway in our industry and maybe in other areas, where people talk a lot about introvert or outrovert, or introvert or extroverted, or some will say farmer and gatherer, some will say visionary and implementer. There's all kinds of different ways to suggest that. But what do you see it that way? And then what advice do you offer for someone who's heavy on vision, but light on implementation? Do you encourage them to lean on others to help implement those goals, or that vision? Or what about the other way around too, where, maybe I lack in vision, but I'm strong in being able to take a vision and put it into a process and turn it into a well-oiled machine. Do you subscribe to like that kind of thinking, and what suggestions do you offer?
Well, I've really changed my views on when I went from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So it kind of depends on how you want your life to look. Like, you can develop and change. Like, I've changed drastically over the last year. Just me being on this podcast a year ago, I would have never done it. I was a numbers guy stuck in an office looking at numbers, and I thought I didn't like people. And, so when you come at it from a growth mindset, I think it goes back to, what do you want? You can develop those sides. And if you don't want to do it, leverage it out, hire it done. So I've kind of changed my views on that, but create the business and the life, structure what works for you. But you can absolutely develop new skill sets. You can change. It just goes back to, how do I want to live? What's my goal? And then you make adjustments based off that.
I often have people who I'll ask to be on the podcast, and we've been pretty successful so far with being able to keep the show filled up. But occasionally I'll have someone that I'll ask, and they'll say, I just don't think I have anything to offer. I just don't think I have anything to say. I don't think that people will find me very interesting. What advice would you give to someone who responds that way?
Well, we're all the same. If one person can do it, anybody can do it. Everyone has something to offer. Everyone has a story. But it's interesting, and you mentioned this earlier about self-image and identity. If you look at anybody, all their results are a direct reflection of how they view themselves. So we can never outperform or never outgrow our self-image. And that's where it goes back to, when you have that vision, that goal of who you want to become, you literally change your identity and start becoming the person you want to become. So that was a big thing for me. Is I was the same way. I really struggled with self-esteem, self-image. I didn't really like myself, so I tried to be somebody I wasn't, because I thought I had to, so other people liked me. Well, that gives off you're not authentic. It's a repelling energy. So really getting comfortable with yourself and really seeing yourself for who you really are, and is a huge shift. So I would help them shift their perspective on and how they view themselves, because everybody has a version that's 20 times bigger inside of you. It's up to you to develop and define that person.
Man, those stories too, Wendell, some of them end up being the best conversation that you can put a microphone to. I mean, all level of communication could be recorded. I've watched some podcasts sometimes over some things that people would think that's got to be the most boring. Imagine telling people that you do a podcast over the shed industry who are not in it. They're just kind of like, what? People will listen? Are they like that? And I'm like, well, so I think you have to make it more than just the shed. You know, when people ask us, we thought about doing a podcast. What should we do it on? I'm like, oh, you shouldn't do it. And they're like, what? Why? And I'm like, well, what are you passionate about? And then they tell me, and I say, there's your podcast. It doesn't matter to just do a podcast, because most of us aren't as interesting as Joe Rogan, or we don't have a celebrity status where you just instantaneously get, you know, all of these people that want to tune in to listen because we're oh so interesting. So I'm no different than they are when they feel like they have nothing to offer. But if you find something you're passionate about, you know, wrestling, boxing, baseball, you know, hunting, there's your podcast, or there's your content, even probably for most of your social media, or maybe even your life. If you look at your life, it'll revolve a lot around that particular passion. But those are the areas that are going to seek through whenever you're not sure if people are going to listen, because you're being genuine about it. And we've tried to develop, you know, fertile ground here for all conversation, you know, about religious conviction and, you know, spirituality and being a father and addiction and sheds. And somehow it's worked to have all of these conversations, because I think they're just, you know, people sense sort of your passion, and really communication is a lot of that. So this is why I'm sort of addicted, if you will, to doing these podcasts. It's because it doesn't feel like work. It feels natural. It feels like I should be doing this. And, I had my same concerns. Will anyone listen? Will anyone be entertained? You know, so it's a struggle, but I always encourage people to come on, because I say, man, it's probably your story and your conversation that I'll get about 4 or 5 texts on, and they'll be like, man, I love that guy's podcast. That was awesome. I listened to that twice. And you're just like, hey, that's awesome, man. I'm glad we could provide a platform for conversation and communication. So that's pretty awesome, man. I love whenever that stuff happens.
Well, and you know, I think that's why I'm so passionate about the mindset thing, is it applies to everything, because it doesn't matter what business you're in. Everything starts with you. You know, at the end of the day, you know, leadership, which is a huge part of any business. Well, if you can't lead yourself well, you can't lead others. You can't give something you don't have. So really getting to the root of the cause and taking care of that, everything else will fall into place after that.
Hello from the Shed Geek. Let's take a walk through My Shed 3D. With My Shed 3D, your company can simply add a 3D builder button to its website. Once the customer clicks onto the 3D builder button, they will enter some basic information to get started. Remember, this information is captured in your Leads tab, whether or not the customer designs a building. This is very valuable information that turns a cold call into a warm lead. Next, they begin the design of their shed by selecting a primary use, a style, and a size that best fits their need. My Shed 3D has multiple styles that are available and consistent with traditional and barn styles within the shed industry. However, if you offer a customized or non-traditional style, My Shed Solutions can build that design for future use. We can also save on some design features that make it easy to adjust without a major rebuild or added fees for design changes. For instance, want to offer a steeper roof pitch? Just navigate to the Settings tab. Then click the Building Models. Click Edit Building and just enter the new roof center height, and the design changes will reflect on this style option. This will save you thousands versus traditional design changes that need to build a whole new style to match your design. From here, simply choose the style, siding, and color. Then choose a trim and roofing style and color. Next, let's add a door. That was goofy. Next, let's add a door. It is required to add a door to move forward with the design, as at least one ingress-egress option is necessary. Then add some design changes for personalization. Maybe some windows, or a porch, or some interior shelving. Next, just click Save Design and the customer will receive an automated text with all the features of the design to the email address entered at the beginning. From here, they can edit the design, view the details of the design, pay now to order the shed, or click Rent to Own to complete the necessary steps to purchase a shed they designed with My Shed 3D. The design enters the admin panel as a quote, and this is where the manufacturer can update the progress of the design once a deposit is taken. My Shed, from design to delivery, we have you covered.
So when I think of business, you got your leadership, leverage, and sales. These are three key components to any business, and something I would put much more focus and energy on now if I would have another business, or this is usually the advice I give to people. And if you take care of those three areas, then it makes a significant difference. But at the core of all that is it starts with you.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love what you're doing. I love that you found sort of this area of your life where you could just transform, man. Like that you could go through this process to becoming a better you, a you that feels more comfortable, that has more peace in the things that you're doing. And I'm really excited that you can like take that business model, take that not business model, but you can take that experience and then you can in turn turn that into something that fueling your passion turns into fueling your career. And that's what helps you to gain like your financial success through the process as well too. So you're like, wait a minute, I'm just doing something I enjoy and I get paid for it. It's a different feeling. And I would tell whoever's listening to this today, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't like what you're doing, but there's something you do like doing, I would tell you to chase what you do enjoy doing with everything in you for the rest of your days. There's nothing like doing something you enjoy. You have to be careful of turning it into work. I've experienced that exact thing with the podcast, right? Like you enjoy doing it, but now when does it become work? So you got to think through that process. And I think that's probably always changing, but, how do people reach out to you, Wendal? How do they get a hold of you? You said it's Voss Coaching. You're in Iowa. You're definitely familiar with the metal side of the industry and post frame probably and carport manufacturing and barn doors and all that good stuff. But you're a construction guy. Your past is construction and sheds and chicken coops and dog kennels and gazebos, all same-minded people who fall into that, right, who need your services.
Yeah, well, they can text, call. I can give you my number is 641-414-1454. So you're more than welcome to reach out that way. You can reach me at my email. It's wendal@vosscoachingco.com or on any social media platform, Facebook, Instagram. So yeah, love to connect. If anybody has any questions, see if we can help them out. But no, it's been a real pleasure. Really enjoyed this.
Do you attend any trade shows that are industry related, Wendal? Do you guys go to any of the shed or carport or post frame type expos or trade shows?
No, we have most of it is done online.
Gotcha.
So we don't get to a lot of physical trade shows.
Yeah.
So the coaching platform, a lot of it's online platform.
Okay.
Access people anywhere and everywhere. So we've got a wide variety of products depending on what your needs are, from one-on-one coaching to, so yeah, we cover a wide variety.
I like it. Well, hey, I like to turn the microphone around from time to time. I don't know if you're interested, and I don't know if I prepared you for that, but I wanted to take a few minutes here, and I grill you on all these questions the whole time, and you're so, faithful to come on the show and answer them and sit in the hot seat, if you will. But I like to turn the microphone around and let you ask a question or two with whatever time allows. Do you have any questions about sheds, Shed Geek, podcasting, baseball. I don't know. What do you have questions on, if any? And I'll do my best to answer them in complete transparency.
Sure. Well, I love the shed industry, and I've been exposed to it quite a bit over the years, the RTO industry. So it's great. But so when was that pivotal moment that you decided I'm going to start a podcast? Like, what inspired that?
Well, one of the biggest things was traveling around. I worked in rent to own. I worked as a rep. We were, signing up companies for RTO, and just what I recognized about it almost immediately was that it was pretty thick with competition. And as most situations go, you want to set yourself apart. So I'll take you through the funnel here, if you will. You want to set yourselves apart. And I was like, man, one way to set yourself apart was to be like authentic and true. And like, I'm not saying others weren't. You're just trying to like build a relationship over time, because I'm a relationship builder and a relationship based salesperson. It doesn't mean I'm the most successful salesperson, but that's the style that fits with me naturally. And I don't really see myself changing that to become a more hardcore salesman, or someone. Matthew Dixon's book would call that the challenger sale, right? I'm a relationship-based sales guy, and that's the way I want to operate, even if I'm not the most successful. There's ups and downs to that. You build a relationship, you have a friend, now your friend becomes a client. It can become complicated if they're no longer a client. So if you're not prepared for that. But I was just out building these relationships, knocking on doors. And I was like, man, I got to get them to know who I am and hope that they like who I am, because then I'll have the opportunity to do business maybe in a year or 2 or 3. Because not everybody just walks in and signs up a company to rent to own because it's already been around for several years. And there's probably an inside joke there that says, if you do sign somebody up on the first day, maybe you don't want them. I'm not sure. So you need to work for this business. And that's what I wanted to do. I started hearing people say, how do I get more resources? We've got some publications and things like that in the shed industry, but I just need more information. And I thought, man, you could just I was an avid podcast listener, and I thought you could just put a microphone to all of these conversations. And I think as long as you keep it positive and don't trash companies and all of these other things that you hear in private, so that's why my wife developed, I don't know if that's the right word. My wife found out she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And one of the things that I was really concerned about was I spent a lot of time on the road building these relationships. I thought, man, how am I going to do this and still take care of my wife and my family? And, for whatever reason, man, the idea just came like, you could do a podcast on the shed industry. You just got to figure out the details of it. And it came down to like, man, just wanting to have conversations with people and record it and then send it out to people where they could hear it. I think people see the value in that, or at least they've told me they have since then. And that's the truest inspiration of what existed. I wanted to be able to talk to people, but I couldn't always put in the effort to come knock on their door and spend time with them and go eat a nice steak dinner and wine and dine them, if you will, or whatever it is we all have to do to try to like build those relationships. And honestly, man, the Lord provided. I can think of at least a few people, those doors we knocked on, we couldn't get in, who learning about my personality and my purpose, and they've actually called and said, hey man, I want to know you more, or do a podcast or do business with you. And you're like, wow, I didn't see that. I didn't see how that would connect, but it's just authentic, man, just grassroots. I just want to connect with people, and I love conversation and talking with people. And for anybody who's close to me, they'll tell you I spend an unhealthy amount of hours on Zoom calls, Google Meets, phone calls, Teams, and everything else. So, but I love to connect. I love to conversate with people. I find them genuinely interesting no matter what they're doing.
Yeah. So that was kind of ties in with I got one more question for you. So you've got quite a few different business stuff going on, and it ties in with goals. Goals are for us to grow. They're not to get. And we talk about financial goals. Mm-hmm. It's about the experience and the fulfillment, and really so the question I have for you is, what's your why? What's the why behind it all?
Yeah, man. Like all this opportunity, super cool. We just had to drop one recently, and I was like, I overcommitted. So like, I realized it was my decision that was wrong. Was I chasing money to go ahead and move forward on that? I don't know. Maybe. And maybe I just wasn't being honest with myself, because it seemed like a really good opportunity, both financially, and just, to gain more exposure to some knowledge and things like that. My why, I mean, it starts with, it starts with, James, was it James chapter 1, verse 5? Let any man who lacks knowledge, let him ask, let it be given to him. I grew up in a family that did not pursue education and would not be considered financially stable, from at least a United States perspective, maybe not a worldly perspective, but at least, I remember, what is it you got to do? You got to go to school. You got to learn. You got to know more. And I just remember failing at so many different things. And I asked God one time, I said, could you just give me, what do I need? Do I just need more knowledge? And I remember opening up the Bible, and somehow I turned to James 1:5, and it said, if you just need knowledge, ask. And I began to ask God, could you help me be smarter? Because I don't think I'm smart enough. Can you help me learn more? Apparently I don't know how to learn the right way or figure out more. And careful what you pray for. You just might get it. I'm not saying I'm a smart guy, but he began to put challenges in front of me that made me more knowledgeable and put me in situations where I began to gain an education and increase in knowledge. And the more you do that, the more you realize there's more, almost you feel like there's more responsibility that you have to, you know what I mean? You know something, so now you've got to do something with that knowledge. You feel obligated to. And I think that's what happened to me. So I probably spent about 10 years reading, educating, and just learning more. And I got a long way to go, man. I try to surround myself with people who I know I can do better because I'm around them, not financially, but just gaining knowledge, gaining candor, gaining, like, you know what I'm saying? Resolve. Just like being around those people matters to me, because I'm like, I appreciate them and who they are so much. So, yeah, man, I give long answers. I don't give short answers, Wendell. I'm sorry, but yeah, man, I think my why, man, is just, wanting to gain in knowledge, increase in knowledge, and use that to find some level of success that brings me peace.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's so much bigger than ourselves. It's, and I feel like we're here to serve, and yeah, it's about what value we can bring to the world.
Yeah. I believe that for men, that's a particular, I don't mean to focus on the, the patriarch or whatever, but I believe for men, that's sort of it's instilled in you that, what you do here matters. And I'm not saying that doesn't for women by any means. Please don't take that way. But I can only speak from a man's perspective. I've only ever been a man. So, I tend to say it matters more for me than maybe it does my wife. For her, she's very family driven. I am too, but there's like this different levels that we try to accomplish. And I think for me, and I think for most men, it's like, you just want to know that you matter. Ultimately, you want to know that you matter to your family, to society, to your friends and family, your business, your church. You want to know that, ultimately that they see something in you that is valuable. And I think that that's the sort of the legacy you're always trying to leave behind. And for me, that's probably, it's heavy thought. Anybody gets around me, they're like, man, you think way too heavy. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe you're 100% right, but maybe I'm thinking about it just enough instead of overthinking it. I love to get lost in thought, and I love to read things about, how other people, the Lord says, protect your thoughts, protect your thoughts. They guide you, so I have to even like consider what I'm thinking, and And then I don't recall ever finding out where a thought comes from, but I tend to think it's manifested through your experiences and things you do. So, hang around a barber shop long enough, you're going to get a haircut, Wendell. Maybe not me, guys like me and you, but it's going to happen to somebody, right? So, you hang around bad things long enough, those bad things begin to infiltrate your mind. They manifest thoughts. And then the next thing you know, your experiences are what you got. But instead challenge yourself to hang around maybe somebody who you admire. Maybe you're trying to notate or find out their level of success for yourself. Well, take them to lunch and start asking them questions, so like put yourself in those environments, and those are the thoughts that begin to develop inside of you, is my opinion, or at least my experience.
It's great. We become what we think about all day long. So it's very important.
I love these conversations, man. I can have them all day long, and I promise you, me and you're going to have many, many more, either on or off a podcast. I appreciate you being on here so much. I feel like you're a thought leader, and I feel like you are a swell guy that just probably found his purpose, man. And you're really using that to help others find theirs. And that's what I see if I had to write your everything down on a quarter.
All right. Well, I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed it, and yeah, it's great chatting.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Hey, this is Mo Lunsford in sunny Union Grove, North Carolina, and we want to say thank you to all the guests and listeners.